This video will be probably one of 3 or 4 video clips I'll put together to show you guys how to go about creating the database, well, the proposed solution to building this database. I must warn you, this is only a best guess. I mean, we can only go with the information that we're given, so hopefully this will be very close to what they're asking for in the exam. So at this point, I'm assuming you know what the scenario is. If you don't, you should do that before even looking at this video clip. So have a look at the scenario. What we're going to focus on in this video is the logging in. So ensuring that only a valid personal tutor or teacher is allowed to enter the system, loading the correct form depending on whether it's a tutor or is a teacher. So there's 2 separate forms depending on who they are. Now, before we get into the details of this, we need to look at the again the proposed table structure. So I'll just show you what I've come up with. This is a rough idea of what I think could be, or best guess of what could be coming up in the exam. Probably more of a 4-table solution than what I have here than a 5-table solution, but we'll see what happens. But what I've done is I've created 2 different tables, one for teacher and one for tutors. Obviously there will be a student table, just not sure what fields are going to be in there. You can bet your life that student ID, name and surname, year will be in there. However, this is sort of guessing what else could go in here, positives and negatives. On the far left hand side I put a separate table to identify the type of issue that it could be, whether it's let's say bullying, whether it's homework, whether it's truancy, and the type I just refer to whether it's a positive or a negative, so a merit or a behavior point basically. So again, best guess, may not even need this table, so let's just see what happens during the exam. The table in the middle, probably the most important. This is where the teacher raises an issue for the students, so it takes the issue, it takes the actual teacher who raised the issue, the student and what tutor group they're in, and writes some comments and identifies the date in which the issues happened. Now, one thing that's a little bit confusing, I guess, is the wording on the actual pre-release. If I just get the pre-release up here, it says issues could be when students have performed well or where there are concerns. Now, the word issue, I think you'll agree, states there's a problem, but in this case it also could be if they perform well, and that's probably one of the reasons I put in the type for the issue, whether it's positive or negative. So let's just see what happens here. Right, so let's get back to the basic. Let's create a login form for either a teacher or a tutor. So first thing you do is create a form which will let a teacher or a tutor log in. So standard form, create, and we'll use form design. So I'm going to 2 fields here, like any form for logging in, a username and a password. So username, make sure you give them a name at the very start. It's a good habit to get into. Username, always use lowercase, guys. Don't be confusing yourselves with adding capital letters or trying to get the grammar correct. You're not going to get any marks for that. Don't want to confuse things in the long run. Password, and that's basically it. Now let's tidy this up too. Let's get username in here. In here, yeah, you probably want to have your capital letter because this is what the end user will see. It needs to look professional, and you will get marks on based how the form looks. So just bear that in mind. So we got the username and password. There's a couple of ways to check to see if the username and password is correct. Now, in my tutors table, I've got username and password for the tutors, and in my teachers table, I've got again username and password. Okay, both the same thing. We need to check to see if these are correct or not. Now, there's lots of different ways you could do this. You could use a DLOOKUP, you could use a macro, you could use a query. It's not clear what they want you to use in the exam, but most likely it's going to be some sort of query. Now, query can check to see if something exists or it doesn't exist. So we're going to create 2 queries for this because there are 2 scenarios. There is teachers and there's tutors, so we're going to create a query for each. So let's go create query design. We need to get ourselves a teacher table first of all, and we need 2 things: username and the password. Now in the criteria, that's simply going to be the actual form what we use to log in. So let's give this a name. Let's call it the login form. Something nice and simple. Click OK. And in the criteria here, under let's change that to username, and inside here let's have password. Okay, so in the criteria we'll go forms, login form, and username. Here we go. And this will be a lot clearer what's happening here once I show you how to make a macro to check to see if the username and password is correct. So just bear with me for now. Forms, login form, and this time it's going to be password. All this does is inserts the username from here, the password from here, and places them inside the query. If there's a result, a result will be there. So we're going to use something called a dcount to do that. I'll introduce that in a second. So that's the first query. This is going to be the teacher login. Okay, so teacher underscore login. Click OK. And it's the exact same query for the tutor, except we use the tutor table as opposed to teacher. So let's just close this and make a new query. Create query design, tutor table this time, or tutors table. Two fields we need, same thing, username and the password. Criteria, exact same thing, forms, login form, and username. And in here, same thing, except it's going to be password. Let's just take that box. There we go. So let's save this, and let's call this tutor underscore login. Click OK. Now, let's save this, and let's test to see if this works. So I'm going to enter a tutor's login details here. Now I've got a tutor in my tutors table called Jones A. He's Alan Jones, and the password is all lowercase pass. If I run the query, let me just click off this actually. If I run the query, hopefully I'll get a result which tells me the username and password is correct. There we go. So it's actually recognizing that A Jones and password is correct, therefore the query is working. So let's close this and let's just save this form. Now to check to see if it's working, we need to create a macro. And you're so used to making macros, you should be in the habit of using the if statements. We need to check to see if a username and password is correct, but we're going to use a dcount to help us do this. So the first thing we do is enter an if statement, and we're going to use dcount, and that simply checks the table and tells us whether a record exists or not. So equals dcount, open bracket, and the expression is simply speech marks, asterisk, speech marks, which means anything we type into the username can go in here. The domain is simply the name of the query, which is speech marks, and I'll do the teacher one first. Teacher underscore login. Now that's the name of the query, which is down here. Okay, and then speech marks again to close that off. Let's close off your bracket now. So we're counting to see if there are any teachers with the username that we entered and password. So if that equals 1, that means one exists. Okay, if it equals 0, that means none exist. So let's check if teacher login equals 1. What do we want to happen? Well, we want the teacher to be brought to the teacher form. Now we haven't got a teacher form just yet, so it'll be worth creating that right now. So let's go create and create form. All we're going to do is leave it blank for now, and we'll just call it teacher form. So if the teacher logs in, it'll bring them to here. And if it's a tutor, we want it to go to the tutor form. So let's create another form called tutor form this time. So right click, save, tutor form. So depending who it is that's logging in, it'll bring them to either one of those forms. Now in this case it's a teacher, so we need to open form. The action will be open form, and the open form will be the teacher form, teacher login form, sorry. Now let's do the actual tutor. So we'll do add else if, so it's the same thing. So if it isn't a teacher, it's going to be a tutor. So add else if, And we can actually copy this here, save us a bit of work. And inside the else if, we can simply paste this. Instead of having teacher login, we'll have tutor login. This one right here, tutor login. And again, if that equals 1, we wanted to open up the form. That's called open form, and that's going to be the tutor form. Now, there's one other permutation. It can either be a teacher, it can either be a tutor, or indeed they could get the username and password all wrong completely. So we'll put an else in here, add else, and this will simply be a message box saying incorrect details, something like that. So it's up to you what you want to put in there. Okay, I'm just going to do this really quickly. Let me spell that correct first of all. Incorrect details. You could say try again. Okay, so let's save this macro. Let's give it a logical name. So let's call it login macro. We'll click OK. Now we've got to add this macro to the form using obviously a button. So let's add a button in here. So design view. Let's get a button in the bottom. And this is going to be under miscellaneous, run macro. There's only one macro there, so it's login macro. Let's give this a name. In the exam, you need to make sure everything's clearly labeled. So let's just call this login, like any other login form would have. A simple, obvious message to say what it does. There we go. Let's test this out now. I'm going to put in some random information just to make sure that the query is not letting me in, or the macro, sorry. So I'll log in, incorrect details, please try again. This time I'll try log in as a teacher. Now I am in there as a teacher, so my username is that, my password is simply pass. Hopefully it'll open up the teacher login form, which it does. So that's that working. Let's try enter a tutor's details this time. I've got a tutor in there called Jones A, I think, and password I kept it the same. Hopefully this will open up the tutor form. There you go, that's working correctly now. That's a lot of the work done, guys, in many ways. So let's just go back to scenario and make sure it's doing what it's asking us to do. So ensure only a valid personal tutor or teacher is allowed to enter the system. Yeah, that's working. And loads the correct form depending on that user or that type of user. So that's the end of this video, guys. In the next one, I'll be looking at task number 2, which is viewing a personal tutor group. Okay, so good luck with that.